Hello and welcome. My name is Biliana, and you're again with the Legacy Changemaker broadcast. We are here together to celebrate the work of changemakers, no matter the size of the change. We are also here to connect, and we are also here to inspire each and every one of you who is working towards a more prosperous, peaceful, hopeful, people and planet-centered world. We want to be able to enable you, and you choose what kind of actions to take. Welcome again, and let's go. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Sascha Nick. Let me introduce to you Sascha Nick. There we go. Hi, Sascha. How are you?
Hello, Biliana, and hello to all.
Thank you so much for being with us. Sascha Nick is a professor at the Lausanne Business School. He's a professor in sustainability at the Lausanne Business School, at the University of Lausanne, and also he teaches at the EPFL, right, Sascha? That's right. And he has a course which has been awarded as the most interesting SDG-related course, right, by the United Nations Sustainable Development Network, Solutions Network. Can you tell us a little bit about that course, Sascha?
Sure. It's a course called the SDG, as in Sustainable Development Goal Explorer, which I've been teaching since 2017. And indeed, it was selected as a best practice in sustainability teaching by the SDSN. And it's a bachelor course. It's actually a first-year bachelor course. It's the first university level course students get after high school when they join us. And of course, it's about sustainability, it's about the SDGs, but it's also how to think about the world. So it's a very interesting course.
Thank you so much. And in addition to that, you're a serial entrepreneur, right? Your company, the CO2 Monitor, engages employees in the reduction of the CO2. Am I correct?
Yes. I started CO2 Monitor in 2008. So it's been around now for about 12, 13 years. And the CO2 Monitor is actually the fourth company I have created. And it's really fun because it's a way to bring all the sustainability thinking and action to company employees.
And in addition to this,
it wasn't easy to work in the last year because we organize events in companies, and of course, in a bit more than a year, we couldn't organize any events. So there's been a bit of remote work, but mostly I've been working with companies also to help them get the B Corp, prepare for the B Corp certification.
That's right. I was about to say this. Thank you very much for mentioning it. We have Olesia with us. Hi, who on LinkedIn. Hi, Olesia, and thank you for being here with us. And that's a good moment just to tell you that if you have questions or comments, please do post them both on LinkedIn and on YouTube. We will be able to read them and we'll be able to answer your questions. So thank you very much for engaging. And of course, thank you, Olesia, for being here with us today. Let's move on, Sascha. Now, what are we going to talk about today?
Whatever you would like to. I have proposed the title.
Yes, that's right.
Called Is Your Worldview a Good Basis for a Better World? Now,
there we go. Is your worldview a good basis for a better world? What made you choose this title?
Well, we have two parts in it. We have the worldview and we have a better world. And does one link to the other? And of course, the world is the result of natural laws of physics, but it's also very much the result of how people think about it. And because of that, much of what people think is based on their worldview, much of on the way they perceive the world, on the way they think about values, about the reality of the world. So a worldview is a group of thoughts. It's a system of thinking how to make sense of the world. So that's the worldview. And depending on how that system of thoughts comes together, it is either a basis for a better world, or it's a basis for continuing the world that we have today, which has all sorts of problems.
Thank you so much for clarifying. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And for those out there, we are talking to Sascha Nick. Sascha, tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Sure. I'm not really sure there is so interesting stuff to tell about me. I've done all sorts of interesting things in life, and I guess that's what really shaped who I've become. I've lived on several continents, in lots of countries, traveled quite a bit around, mostly by train, a bit by bicycle, a bit by sailboat. A little bit by airplane. I stopped that a long time ago, but most of the travel has been sustainable. So I met a lot of people. I've done several different professions. I studied physics and economics. I worked for large companies. I started a few startups. Been in academia now. I also am an inventor, so I developed some new software-based methods. And all of these different things, the different professions, the different countries, the different types of jobs I was in, I guess it all somehow accumulated to help me understand the same problem from multiple perspectives. And that is, in a sense, if you think of it, it is a good definition of sustainability, really looking into what is it that you're trying to achieve and looking at it from multiple perspectives. And it all seems to make sense after everything I've done. But when you do things, of course, you have no idea where it leads. So you start something because you like it, and then you abandon or you continue. And then perhaps 10 years later or 20 years later, it all seems to be falling in place and makes sense.
So tell us, where did it lead you?
Well, it led me to understanding what I value in my life and where I think I can make a difference. So a long time ago, I stopped running after titles or money or any of these things that people are often all too obsessed about. And I really realized that what I care about is working on meaningful things, being with people who are open-minded, who contribute, who respect each other. I like being around in nature. I like cooking and eating well, if possible, with my friends. I like theater. I like opera. I like music. And in a sense, trying to put all of this together into a life that is meaningful and that gives me a little bit of time for everything. Not much, and the time is always a problem, but at least some balance is something I usually can find.
Thank you so much. Let's talk a little bit about the sustainability and a little bit about what is the biggest change that you see that needs to happen.
Well, I think the experience we had in Switzerland of the last Sunday, just 5 days ago, is a very nice illustration of everything that is wrong.
So can you please clarify for people who are not living in Switzerland, what happened last weekend in Switzerland?
Well, it was one of the 4 Sundays where the Swiss people in the traditional direct democracy can vote on important issues. And there were 5 national initiatives and a number of local ones. And 3 of those 5 were actually quite important, and they were all rejected. One was on ensuring that the drinking water is clean. The second one would ban most of synthetic pesticides in Switzerland and imported food. And the third one was approving of the CO2 law that the parliament had voted on at the end of last year. And all 3 were rejected, which means that with varying majorities, the Swiss people prefer not to take action on climate until it's the very last moment and it becomes very difficult and very expensive. It prefers that Swiss people are much more concerned about the price of food than they are about the quality and poisoning themselves and everything living with the pesticides. and that clean drinking water is not one of the priorities. And of course, it's not really, if you ask people, no one wants poison in their water. But if you ask people, many did not fully understand the complexity of the issues, and others were afraid by or swayed by arguments of some interest group that tried to make them afraid that suddenly there will be no more food and everything will be much more expensive. And if any of these law passes, every single company in Switzerland will go bankrupt and everybody will lose their jobs, etc. So there are all sorts of fake analysis circling around in media, official media, unofficial media, social media. And many people, far too many people believe this stuff.
Okay, so
too many people were afraid and...
Okay. So let's look a little bit constructively on this. What do people need to understand? Let's start with the CO2. Because it's your cup of tea, right? So what is it that people like me, I did not vote. I don't have the right to vote in Switzerland, but people like me who have the right to vote need to understand about the CO2 in order to be able to vote.
Right. Well, at what level do you really need to understand the world? And in systems thinking, you can observe an event, and today is a hot day, but that doesn't mean anything. When you have a lot of events, you can put them together on a timeline, and then you have a thing called the trend. And the trend can already tell you something. And we see that the trend in temperatures is much higher temperatures now than we had 10 years ago, that we had, and then we had 20 years ago, etc. So it's been rising together with CO2. Then there is the next level, which is called the structure, how things are interlinked. And that requires some modeling, understanding of physics, etc. And in any kind of human system, you also have a fourth level, which is called the mental models. And a mental model is really how people think about these things. And if you want to understand something, a physical system, you need to understand its structure. And the human system, you need to understand both the structure, like who has power, who makes decisions, who passes the laws, etc. And of course, the mental models, how people think about all these things. And of course, 99% of communication and media is based on the event level, which really doesn't really allow you to understand anything at all. So what you need to understand in terms of CO2, in a sense, of course, events fluctuate, so they're not interesting. Trends show that the temperature and CO2 are rising. System structure show that we have a highly unequal society based on fossil fuels, where all institutions promote growth and where power is very unequally divided and reinforced by this structure, these elements of structure. And then at the mental model, people have been educated for at least 2 generations to think that economic growth is something positive and desirable, that consumerism is required for a thriving economy, that materialism is the basis of well-being, that much is individual, that we have competition as a major driving force. And every single one of these things is completely wrong. It's actually in almost all cases exactly the opposite. But these mental models that people have been on purpose educated to develop, of course, drive society in a certain way. That's why people vote against their interests.
So what do we need to do? How do we need to educate ourselves? And how do we need to educate the people who are growing up now, today, and who are even growing up?
Yeah, well, education is really something you do your entire life. And it doesn't stop a single day. So of course you go to school, but you continue after that. And education should not stop after school. The school is just the beginning of the education. So how do you educate people about that? Perhaps much in the opposite way of the way we have historically educated people. So when you take a complex problem and you break it down into individual pieces, then understanding every piece doesn't mean that you will understand how they all fit together. So this is very fashionable these days in academia, which is called interdisciplinarity, where you take the same problem from various disciplinary perspectives and you try to integrate them and you try to get a holistic view. And many people are speaking about that. It's actually quite hard to do because you need to work in areas where you're not very good, together with areas where you are an expert. And a bit of this interdisciplinarity is something we need to bring to schools at every single level, to bring to people in a continued education. Also, it will be quite important to ensure that everybody is doing continued education every single day of their lives.
Thank you. And what are you?
I hope this is clear and it helps.
I think it's simple and it's clear, and I hope it helps too. But only the audience will be able to tell us. Let me ask you this: what are you doing to bring interdisciplinary closer to the people?
Well, I am working on societal transition pathways, which means bringing all these disciplines together and helping people understand how all of this fits together, identifying pathways, how our society can go from the one we have today towards a better one. What would that mean for the energy system? What would that mean for the food system? That is, how much of what kind of food should we grow where, using what kind of mechanism, what kind of method, approach? And once we have that food, what should we do with that? How do we allocate the food? Who gets it? How much of what? That's just one example. But every single one of our systems would need to be rethought like that. I'm much focusing on three things: on food, energy, and governance, how we make decisions about these things. And two very practical things I have done and am continually doing. I have initiated the annual symposium on societal transition pathways, which is a symposium bringing together people interested in societal transition to discuss practice and theory and scientific research in these areas. We've done two of them. And then I'm also prototyping a new type of citizens' assembly, a new instrument for direct democracy. And we actually held the first prototype of our academic citizens' assembly on the 4th of June this year.
And what happened?
It was great. We had very, very motivated people. We worked on food and energy transitions. We developed 3 scenarios for the future. The teams came up with a total of 103 proposals. And most of these proposals are very, very meaningful. People voted on them. The top proposals are great. And it's not only a mechanism to generate proposals, but it's also a new instrument, because my dream would be to completely expand this kind of instrument and reform our democracy for the type of challenges that we have today. So perhaps once a year, we could all get together for a few days, learn and deliberate about the biggest challenges of society. And if we did that, there would be a lot less ignorance and a lot less influence by lobbyists and a lot less fake news. Because once you know about something, of course, you will not believe the fake news. And we could, once a year, get people together, make sure everybody learns about this, and most importantly, everybody is involved in shaping the future. Once people see this works, I think this could completely transform a society. So these are some of the things I am doing. The Academic Citizens Assembly is still a prototype, but we hope to build bigger, more inclusive versions until we have something, hopefully in 2 or 3 years, that will be ready to be deployed at a countrywide level.
And if people are interested in joining the assembly, how can they become a part of it?
The best way is to contact us. We have a website, the Academic Citizens Assembly. And in this on this website, they can write to us that there is a contact. That would be the easiest thing. When this grows big enough, they will hear about it through the media. But in the beginning, we simply have lists of people whom we invite, and we are continually expanding those lists. But of course, if you're interested in the beginning, like in the next edition, which will take place in early 22, just write to us.
And who are the partners and the collaborators behind this initiative?
It's an initiative of Business School Lausanne and EPFL, and we have various working teams. So a total of about 20 people were part of the core team, and perhaps another 10 or 15 people actively contributed to this first edition.
That's great to hear. Two very good universities, and maybe more will join. Why not? Are you open to accepting more universities?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. From the start of the preparation for the next one, we just finished this one. We just had our last assembly 2 weeks ago. And from the moment that finished, we started analyzing the results. We hope to be able to share the results perhaps a week to 2 weeks from now. And then we're going to start planning for the next one. And thank you for sharing the link.
You're very welcome. Yes, to everybody who is watching, please, this is the link, www.academiccitizensassembly.ch. Do join, no matter if you're a university or an individual who wants to contribute, do join. What has been your biggest success up to now, Sascha?
This is not a very easy question. I think perhaps on a personal level, just to become more mindful and more aware of the reality, of my own reality, of the reality around me, and to be able to identify what is really important. And even more importantly, I think my biggest success has been to inspire a number of people. Many of them are my students, but not only. And if you can inspire a person, you can make a difference for someone for a long time. And that is very, very valuable. So
yes.
it doesn't happen every day, but when it does, I'm very, very grateful to be in a position to be able to do that.
And what has been the most difficult thing up to now? And when I say thing, I mean the most difficult thing to change.
Yeah. Well, people's mindsets. It works very well in childhood. When you have 5-year-olds or 6 or 7-year-olds, they're quite open-minded. And around the teenage years and in early adulthood, this often pretty much closes. And it's hard to reach people. They kind of know what they think they know, and they're not really often interested in learning much. At least not at a very fundamental level. Of course, people learn all sorts of things every single day. But at a very fundamental way, seeing the world differently, that is kind of hard.
And what has helped you to continuously change your own mindset and to continuously keep an open mind?
Mainly by changing my environment. So I moved to different places, and also changing my profession. I have been an engineer, inventor, manager, startup founder, researcher, teacher, and every single one of these, when you get into it, you have to start from square one. And you have so much to learn. And unless you completely are open to question every single thing you know, you're not going to become very good, because you think you know and you don't, and you're closed-minded to change.
Okay, great.
So putting yourself in a position where you have to try new things kind of forces you to open up your mind. It works. Try it.
Okay. So I just wrote this down, and I want to share it with you and with the audience. dare to start from square one, right?
Yes, but more than that, put yourself in a position, like start a new profession, start something new, where you have to do that. It's like you are learning to swim, and at some point you jump in the deep water, and either you swim or you sink.
Okay, now let me bring you back to the question we started with.
Yes.
Is your worldview a good basis for a better world? What can I and the audience do to kind of really reflect a little bit and evaluate and maybe even accept the worldview we hold at the moment and start? What will be some steps to start changing it?
Well, first of all, you need to become aware of what your worldview is and how you see the world and how you see the priorities and how you see what matters. So I think the very first step is to stop for a moment and think, and don't run like crazy after the next appointment. And then think about, what is it that you value? What is it that's important to you? Think about your priorities. Think about what you think should be priorities for society. One good place to start is to think about your personal health and about collective well-being. Now, this is a very interesting thing. There is no such thing as individual well-being. If someone puts you on a desert island completely alone for the rest of your life, no ability to see any other human, and you're allowed to take any material stuff you want with you, after a while you will be bored. Your well-being will not last very long.
I love this. There's no such thing as individual well-being. Thank you for
Not for a
saying
long
this.
time. Not for a long time. Only perhaps very short.
Yes. Thank you for sharing this out loud with everybody.
But
So,
Viviana, if you give me like a moment, there are a few more things. I think thinking and reflecting and individual health, collective well-being, this is all good as the first step. But I think there are 4 more steps
okay,
you
please share.
need to take, or at least you could take to make a significant difference. So you can stop waste.
Okay.
And much of what we do in today's society is wasteful. Nothing is more wasteful than a car. Well over 99% of energy of a car goes to waste. Flying is extremely wasteful in terms of time and energy. Eating meat is wasteful. Think how much solar energy and plant material needs to go into producing 1 gram of protein or 1 kilojoule of meat energy. So meat is extremely wasteful if you think about it. Buying all the stuff you have around you is not only wasteful for the time and money it takes you and the space, but also for the mental space. If your house is cluttered, then probably your mind is as well. So stop the waste, but reduce the stress. Like time is a stress, money is a stress, industrial food, processed food is a stress. Pollution, of course, is a stress. Try to get yourself out of the way of stress. And the last 2 things I'd like to mention is vote. Think, reflect, learn before you vote. So we can avoid another repeat of last Sundays. And last, please join our next Academic Citizens Assembly. This could be a way forward.
Great, great. So I heard 4 really important things, and they are stop and reflect. Number 1. Then stop the waste, reduce the stress, vote, and do join the Citizens Assembly. Right?
Biljana, bravo. You are a fast learner. You're fantastic.
Thank you so much. It has been a real pleasure talking to you, Sascha. And thank you to each and everyone who has been watching or will be watching this. We will be back live next Friday with our next Legacy Changemaker. And the next Legacy Changemaker will be somebody who has been inspiring Sascha to do what he's doing on a daily basis. Once again, Sascha, thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend. Keep on opening your mind. Keep on enjoying the beautiful things in life, and have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, Biljana. Goodbye to all.
Goodbye to all, and thank you, everyone.